We got to mix the mission statement with the idea that everything is relevant. Our stand-up is relevant. Living in New York is relevant because it's all how to deal with day-to-day life.
Yeah.
Is that generally it? Yeah. And how the littlest things in the world ruin your whole outlook on life just because of one day when it's really not that big of a deal, but we've got to find a way to deal with our fucking anger, basically.
Yeah.
Because taking the train to Astoria is always a bitch.
It's
Only from Greenpoint.
Oh, really?
yeah, because it's three trains.
Okay.
From my place, it's super quick.
Yeah.
All right. Welcome to The Power of How. I'm Matt Fulcheron. I'm here with Brendan Tassif. I'm here with Daniel Torado.
Hey, everyone.
And I just feel light all of a sudden. We were going to do 2 episodes. Now we're just doing one.
Right.
That's a huge.
And I just feel like the first one's already done.
Yeah.
Fly. Well, it is. A few of them are done.
Yeah.
I'm going out of town, which the stress with that, it's hilarious, the concept of a vacation, because you have to do so much shit before you go on vacation that the week before your vacation is like mega stress.
Yep.
And then we're still, in this modern age, still responsible for all the business calls, work calls, all that shit.
You can never disconnect fully.
I'm going for it. I'm going to look at my phone. I'm going to have to come up with some kind of rule, like once in the morning, once at night or something.
Yeah.
You know, because I don't want to be, I just don't want the mentality. I want to give myself a week off because no matter how zen I try to get.
Do you have an automated response, like out of town for a week?
No, I should have done that. I said I was going to do that.
Yeah, it's helpful.
But I can still do that.
Yeah.
It's not too late. And my millennial wife can help me with that.
I was going to ask, what do you guys prefer? Because I've run into this with vacations, especially growing up in Florida. It was always, let's go to Universal for the week, or let's go to Disney for the week, which sounds like a blast.
Yeah.
But then you schedule so much stuff that you're more exhausted when you get back. So for you guys, would you and I think I know the answer, would you rather have a week where you're just like, I'm going to stay home, shut everything down, and just relax, or would you rather go somewhere?
Well, I don't think the first option can really exist.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Because what I do is just that slippery slope of, well, I do have to do this one thing. And I do have to work out. And I should post my Power of How clips.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, you ain't on vacation.
You're back to work, right?
You just ain't doing any spots.
Yeah.
But if someone calls you, you are. Hey, Matt, can you work in Nyack this weekend? Yeah, sure.
I'm around.
Now you commute in fucking Rockland County.
Even if, where are you going? Where you?
Well, see, here's the thing. I think I can pull this off because we're going to Hawaii.
Dude, if someone offered you a gig in Hawaii, you'll take it.
Oh, I'll take it.
Exactly.
I'm fully prepared to do. I got my set list in my wallet at all times, man. You can't. I'm a Boy Scout.
Yeah.
You know, in case of emergency, break glass, and I'll just start talking about my dick into a microphone. You can count on me. They called me and see if I wanted to go to the UK. I was like, I was supposed to be in Austin. I'm like, fuck yeah. I'm going. But that's what's funny about my wife's philosophy versus my philosophy. So it's the little pushback of we're going to Hawaii, which to me that's the vacation. I'll be in Hawaii. I'll be going to the beach. I'll be sleeping in. I'll be eating out at restaurants. And then she starts with the scheduling.
Yeah.
We want to do this, we want to do this, we want to do this. And I go, look, I'll do everything you want to do. But my objective is to not do shit. So anything you want to stack on that, it's fine. But I'm like, please, for the love of God, just one thing a day.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, and then we already have 2 things you have to wake up early for.
Oh. That's
Already, you're not even on the plane yet.
That's horrible.
But I'm being a good dude. I'm like, if you want to do it, let's do it.
But you know what's tough about going on vacation? I don't know how you guys feel, but let's say I leave a week. It really takes me 4 days to start feeling as though I'm on vacation because you bring New York with you. You bring your work, you bring your worries, you bring your stress.
Yeah.
So not because you're in a new environment that your head just stops racing. So it takes me like 3 to 4 days. So when I leave for like a week, I really feel rested for 2 to 3. Mm-hmm. Like a week is never enough.
No, because you got that. It takes you those 3 or 4 days, and then you got the 2 days of glory.
Right.
And then you have to start thinking about packing up.
Yeah.
And getting back.
That's stressful.
And appointments.
Right.
So
You have to start scheduling stuff for the week you're back, the week you're on vacation.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you have to start getting stuff
yeah.
together, and you're like, I wasn't.
10 days is good.
Yeah.
10 days is good. And avoid Europe.
yeah,
Because
well,
there's too much to see. There's too much to visit. There's
Right.
you need a vacation from Europe
yeah.
when you go to Europe.
Yeah, my mom, we went to London one time, and she was just like, I felt like we haven't seen anything. And I was like, we saw as much as we could.
Right.
You know, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
That's what's so cool about living in New York, because people like this is a destination spot.
I want to hear this.
So a lot of times,
Convince me.
yeah.
a lot of times,
Exactly.
as to quote Godfrey, as a member of the Metropolitan Museum, a lot of times when I go to the Met, you'll see people like running around like we have one day to see all of this.
Yeah.
And I literally go in, scan my card. I'll walk around for like 45 minutes, and I'm like, all right, I'll come back
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
Which is amazing because people.
You're like
they're-
eating a bag of fries.
Yeah, just I always get a hot dog outside, and I'll like walk in eating a hot dog, and I'm like, yeah, I'll check out a couple exhibits.
You're at a baseball game. I might not stay there. I'll leave at the sixth inning, you know?
Exactly. But I think that's one of the coolest things is there are people who travel from all over the world to see some of the stuff we just walk by on a daily basis, and we're like, oh yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Like the Empire State Building and stuff, you'll see it like light up at the hour at night. Like every
Yeah.
hour, it does the cool strobe thing. And I see that like every day leaving work, and I'm just like, oh, that's cool. And you have some people like filming it and stuff.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, because they'll never see it again, ever.
Right.
They'll never be back here. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh,
I've never been to it. Have you guys?
I've been there. I've done it, and I should go back.
Is it because of you had family visiting or friends?
No,
or you
I
just did it on your own.
I went with my wife, which was like, you know, getting married was a great thing for me because I will take weekends to do things.
yeah.
And I would never actually. I mean, I'd walk past the Met in my single life, and that's plenty. Just not plenty, but that's already great.
Well, yeah, coming from
Just looking at the outside of the building is amazing. But no, I just went with my wife and a couple of friends, and it was fantastic. I mean, I get a little bored in the age of streaming and entertainment, but it is great for like an hour.
Yeah.
To just look around and see everything, just to see things that are way older than you.
It's so cool.
Is an amazing thing, and to realize that there was just people just like us living in whatever situation they were in, and it's not that different from where we are now. It's just less gadgets, really,
yeah.
and dying earlier.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, but it's amazing to see, and just the amount of work that would go into a still frame back then is just it's mind blowing. And I also have a art history.
Oh. I didn't know that.
Well, I've just taken a couple classes. I don't have any kind of degree or anything, but like I do know some things. I'm like, oh, that's a thing.
Yeah. It's always cool.
That's a
when you
thing
know-
I read about.
There's a mutual friend of ours who's an artist, and it's so funny because whenever I mention the Met or like a certain artist, she's like, "How do you know that?" And I go, "Well, you know, I know things. I have no idea. I just go to the Met and I read the plaques." But it makes me feel much more cultured when I'm like, "Oh yeah, Rembrandt, totally."
Well, you are.
yeah. Well, that's the thing. Yeah. I mean, I guess yeah.
I
by
mean,
default.
it works.
Just by accidentally going there and reading some stuff, I'm like, oh yeah, that's super cool. Did you know about the ancient Egyptian, Roman, like, and they're
Yeah.
like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah. I know like every episode's of Three's Company and the Roper spinoff. I know all this garbage
And you
art.
got Seinfeld
Hey,
too.
whoa. That's not garbage. Yeah. Please. Furley or Roper?
What?
Furley or Roper?
Well, that's a tough one. That is, please don't make me choose. That's Sophie's choice. I can't live
It's
without
tricky,
it.
right?
I think I'm going to pick, I think I like Roper more and laugh more at Furley. You know what I mean? And I think Three's
Yeah.
Company was better when Roper was on. But Furley's a fucking riot,
Yeah,
dude.
Furley's incredible. Furley's so good. But mind you, what also makes Roper's his wife.
I know, and just how annoyed
Right,
he is.
right.
And how homophobic he is.
That show got away.
He's the only one that winks at the camera.
Right, right.
Does he really?
Yeah, he looks at the camera and like makes.
He'll break the fourth wall.
He makes like a Tinkerbell like motion and stuff, or like he'll say something shitty to his wife and look at the camera.
Yeah. What a great face. He's got a great face. But that show was kind of ahead of its time when you think about it.
Big time.
Yeah, it was, and he was so talented, man. He was like the Chaplin of the 70s.
You talking about John Ritter?
John Ritter.
No, he's amazing.
How he moves, how he uses his body comedically.
There's like a 2-minute scene where he's just falling out of a hammock.
Yes.
Right?
He's I think a comedic genius when it comes to using your body for humor. He is. You don't see that anymore today.
He's also got that great sitcom, like misdirection of emotions,
Right.
like this emotion, that emotion, that emotion.
Right.
Furley,
Right.
Chrissy.
He was so funny.
Yeah.
So talented. And you know, I would watch that with my folks, so I have like a very which is so inappropriate as a kid. It is totally inappropriate, and you don't realize how inappropriate it is
Because it's all innuendo.
Well, not only all innuendo, but you have like Chrissy who's half naked.
Oh, for sure.
You know, all the girls are cleavage, short skirts.
It's such a good show.
I gotta go back and watch this.
and they're drooling. You know, like Larry.
Oh yeah.
Larry is like a young Mr. Furley or a young Mr. Roper.
He's the best character for those that don't know. He's the upstairs neighbor. He's a used car salesman.
Right.
And he's perpetually single. And he's always trying to get laid. And he's always trying to get Jack to come in on the getting laid adventures.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, you haven't seen this?
I've never seen the show ever. No. I know John Ritter from 8 Simple Rules on ABC, which was like
buddy.
right before he died.
The 9th simple rule is watch Three's Company first. Dude.
I thought you were gonna say Problem Child.
Problem Child.
Yeah, he was you have to watch it.
I got to go back.
You have
It's got to be
watch
somewhere.
it.
Do you know the premise of the show? The premise of the show is way dated. It's like these two women want a roommate, and they want a man.
Well, it wasn't dated for back then.
No, I know it's dated for now.
Right.
So like, it's actually very advanced for them.
Yeah.
So he wants to, and I apologize to people that've seen the show a million times, but they want to have this male roommate, so they have to lie to their landlord and say that he's gay.
Okay.
And so then Jack has to pretend like he's gay every time the apartment managers come around, and they come around a lot. Like they are, I haven't even seen my apartment managers.
80s?
This is in the 70s, late 70s, early 80s.
But for whatever reason, he wouldn't allow two women live with
A guy?
if he was straight, which is really odd when you think about it.
No, because then he's going to be like, oh, but it's okay if you're gay. So if he's uptight about the guys with the girls, but he's open-minded about the guys bringing guys home.
Yes.
It's weird.
Yes. So he always has to pretend that he's gay next to Mr. Furley and
Mr. Roper. Well, Mr. Roper's like the one who agrees to it, and Mr. Roper's way homophobic. So it really doesn't make any sense at all.
But he is, but he isn't, because he's
open
letting
with
him
it.
stay there.
But he does say things like, "I'm cool with it, Jack." But he likes to have a lot. He likes to have a lot of fun with it.
This sounds really like.
And he always calls him
ahead of its
Tinkerbell,
time.
and he always does like this little pinky thing when he's Jack, and he's always like making jokes about it. And then Mr. Furley actually seems kind of gay, you know, stereotypically.
Yeah.
You know the way he dresses, and he's
very flamboyant.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah.
I gotta go back and watch this.
And then they got rid of Chrissy.
Yeah,
They fired
Chrissy left, which was a heartbreak because she was talented too.
She was so talented.
She was very talented
Janet,
at being
all of them.
ditzy.
All of them.
Yeah.
They were amazing.
Yeah.
I remember hearing about this controversy on those VH1 shows from back in the day and stuff when
Right.
I was younger, and they would talk about the sitcoms, and that was one of the things that got brought up was like Chrissy leaving Three's Company, but I had never seen the show, so I didn't know.
I think she requested more money.
She did. She held out for more money, and then they had a phase out where she was only on the phone for half a season.
Really? Yeah.
And then they
just got rid of her.
They replaced her with her cousin, Cindy Snow.
Yeah.
She was great.
She was great,
but it just didn't work.
No.
It wasn't the same.
It wasn't the same.
And then Terry, they didn't even bother. The second replacement,
Yeah.
they were like, "You're going to be nothing like Chrissy.
Yeah.
You're going to be like intelligent and work at the hospital."
Right.
But it was still good somehow. It was still good, even though they were missing one of the best parts, which was Chrissy.
I met Larry.
Oh yeah,
Larry, I forget his real name.
His name is Richard. His name is Richard Klein.
That's right,
Yeah.
Richard Klein.
Don't ask me. See, I used to watch. You know how you watch streaming now?
Yeah.
I used to watch reruns like streaming.
Yeah.
I would watch an entire season over the course of 3 months because it aired every day in reruns. and then it would start over, and I'd watch it again.
They do that now with like Friends and Big Bang Theory
Yeah.
and stuff. They go in order,
Yeah.
like straight, and then they just reset it and go in order. Straight.
Yeah, dude.
Syndication, baby.
There was terrible. There was this one channel that back when there was only 3 stations, there was this extra channel that became Fox later on, where they would just wall to wall from like 3:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. prime time. They would just do sitcom reruns.
Right.
And there would be terrible days where I would just be after school eating Little Debbie snack cakes.
Yeah.
And watching, I don't know, 6-7 hours of television.
Right.
And then I'd watch prime time too.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like doing my homework during the commercials or whatever.
I got into soap operas.
So did my brother. Yeah.
Yo, Days of Our Lives, Another World. I was in Fort General Hospital. I
Yeah.
thought that was whack. Although it was the most famous and got the most awards. Mind you, Another World was great. But so my grandmother used to. She kind of raised us when we were kids. So she was addicted to soap operas, but she wouldn't speak the language. Her English was very poor. Like real Polish immigrant. So she would cook, and her favorite show was Another World. So we would just sit by her and translate everything. And then, but while she was cooking, we would always see like the last 10, 15 minutes of Days of Our Lives. So we just got hooked on Days of Our Lives. So we would watch, dude, we got our neighbors hooked to soap operas.
Really?
All our neighbors would come over and we would watch. We were kids and we
Yeah.
would watch Days of Our Lives.
having watch parties for soap operas.
Yeah, followed by Another World. And yeah, there's something about television back then that...
Well, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say the part of the fun of soap operas and daytime television is the shitty commercials and the local commercials. I don't know if they had that in Canada.
They did.
But the DC area was full of just low budget non-actors in the commercial, bad acting.
Oh, really?
Like
we didn't
shit
get that in
video.
Canada. We had Tide commercials and any laundry.
The regional
no.
ads. The regional ads. are the
Those-
best.
Oh, wait, no
Those-
regional ads.
Okay.
Those put hair on your balls, man. Those are the fun. That is so much fun just shitting on those commercials with your friends.
Oh, we didn't
It's some
get
of the
that.
best fun you can have.
We have some of that now in Jacksonville. Like a lot of the car dealerships and stuff will bring on the athletes, and you're like, "What is this? What you don't?" And they're like, "This is such a great deal," and you're like,
yeah,
"What are you doing, dude?"
One of the first road gigs I did, that we were watching daytime TV, me and the other comic, and the owner of the club is all of a sudden in a local car commercial. Because he's a comedian too, you know?
Yeah.
So he's an actor too.
Yeah, oh yeah. God.
Yeah, but so I met Larry. Richard Klein, and he was teaching acting. Mm-hmm. He was teaching acting at Broadway Comedy Club, the Upstairs Room, which is now I think called Above 53. And it was just surreal, and it was just so cool to see someone that brought our families together.
Oh, yeah.
Just give an acting class. He's so cool, man.
And he was so
was a
good.
cool-
You
yeah.
take for granted how good everybody was on that show.
So good.
There's a scene
So
where
talented.
he's a used car salesman.
Yeah.
And he's part of the used car salesman, how we perceive used car
Yeah.
salesmen. Like he is the character
Right.
that sold us on how sleazy used car salesmen
Yeah.
are. And he does this thing where, I mean, this show is great. There's an episode where Jack has to pretend to be dead.
Really?
Yeah, to like pull
That
off
sounds
some
familiar.
kind of scam. There's always a scam every time, including there's episodes where he accidentally has 4 dates at once. And instead of canceling them, he goes on all of them.
He does,
Well,
yeah,
all
yeah,
at
yeah.
once.
The whole, it's a classic premise of it's just misunderstandings. The whole show
all the
is
time,
misunderstanding.
overhearing something.
Yeah.
And it's usually
overhearing
sex.
it badly, right. Yeah,
like
yeah,
they're
yeah.
trying to put sheets on a bed, and it's like, help me, I'm trying to get it on. I'll let you, Jack, if you just relax, and Mr. Furley's like, not my apartment building. But there's a scene where Larry is trying to sell Jack on the coffin to make him comfortable.
Yeah.
So he sells it like a car.
Right.
And I'm not going to butcher it, but I'm sure it's on YouTube. Just type in Three's Company, Larry Coffin, and you are on your way. He gives like a 30-second presentation on this coffin.
I could just
as
see
if
it in
it's
my
a
head.
car.
Yeah.
This
Kicking
thing's
the-
built
kicking
for
the side of
comfort
it.
and for speed. Like it's hilarious. And he pops out the top of it. Like, don't I look? You're gonna look so great when you're
Yeah.
dead, or something like that. It was
It
so
was very
phenomenal.
well written. It was beautifully acted, and I think I think it's probably, to me, one of the best sitcoms ever.
Yeah.
By far.
I gotta
That,
check it
and
out.
I got hooked on Night Court.
Night Court's
Night
great.
Court was incredible. But I think my all-time favorite show is The Wonder Years.
Yeah.
I just want to
Did you ever
talk.
get on that?
Before we get to the Wonder Years, I want to talk about the culture of, and I'm fascinated with sequels and spin-offs.
Yeah.
And
Oh, that was a horrible
Three's
spin-off.
Company had at least two, and the probably
two?
They had the Ropers,
Right.
And they had Three's a Crowd. You know this one? So
with his wife.
Three's Company ends
John Ritter's-
when Jack gets married.
Yeah.
John Ritter gets married, and the father is all in his business.
Right.
Doesn't want. By the way, people are always like walking into the
Right.
apartment. If
Right.
like
Yeah.
Kristen's mom was walking in the apartment all the
Right.
time, I'd be like, "What the fuck is this?
Yeah, what did we got?
How did you get in?" But
Change the locks.
Right.
but the scenario is Jack is getting married.
Yeah.
He now lives in an apartment, looks suspiciously like the old apartment with
Right.
different furniture.
Yeah.
And the dad is now the landlord. And so
I
he's
saw a few
always in their
episodes.
business.
Yeah.
And the dad is, again, the landlord is like crazy in their business. And the only good thing about that show is Jack had a chef named EZ.
Oh, so it's not the same chef as the one.
No, it's not
on-
Felipe.
Not Felipe. Felipe is
No,
so good.
Felipe's there.
Felipe's there?
But the line cook or whatever is now this guy named EZ. This, again, prototype, I guess probably based on Spicoli, but I didn't know it at the time. He's this surfer that lives in his van.
Wow.
And then you got Felipe, this, what is he? He's some kind of
He's Latino. He's Latino, yeah.
immigrant. And he's like very nice to everyone's face, but he secretly hates everybody.
yeah.
And as soon as someone comes around, he's like, "I'll do that for you, you fucking prick."
It was like such stereotypes.
I'm sorry about the bad
yeah,
accent, but it was a bad accent.
No,
you know?
on purpose,
Yeah,
purpose.
exactly.
Well, kind of like Pat Morita, the Karate Kid.
Oh, yeah,
that he spoke perfect.
One of the hardest things about
American English.
about living in Los Angeles is I know so many Asian, Middle Eastern, and Latino friends that you see them on TV. They're like from California or Minnesota or whatever, and they
Right.
have very American accents. And then you see them on TV, and they have this I don't want to say shitty. They do a good job.
Yeah.
But you have this stereotypical
Yeah.
accent.
They
Right.
lean into
And then
it, yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what's so funny about Hollywood. They act like they're so progressive, and then they're the ones that create the stereotypes.
Yep.
It's
Right.
insanity.
But do they do that? They don't do that today now.
They do. I have a friend. They do both now. You'll see like Aziz had a show where they had a bunch of guys who were
Master of None.
I guess Middle Eastern. Forgive me if that's not the term anymore, but they talk about how they're all actors, and there's a whole episode where the three of them sit around and talk about how shitty it is that they get cast, and they're making a choice like, I'm not going to read it. One guy tries to make them tell him to read it as a Middle Eastern. He goes in there and he reads it as a regular American guy.
Yeah.
And they're like, can you do it more? And he makes them find the term. I forget what it is,
Right.
but they won't come up, they won't say it, but they're trying to get him to do it stereotypically.
Right,
And he's like,
right.
I'm not sure I know what you mean.
Right.
I'm not sure. Could you explain it better?
But that's a
to
joke.
me?"
It's
Yeah,
kinda-
that's a
it's kinda-
joke.
Yeah, it's like
I mean, they
fun
talk
at
about it in that movie. It's a little bit older, but Thank You for Smoking. I don't know if you guys ever saw it. It's a great
I have,
movie.
yeah.
And there's a
Oh,
scene
yeah,
where
a
they're
while
talking about
ago.
getting cigarettes back in the movies. And then,
They don't. They have cigarettes in movies.
well, Rob Lowe's
right,
character
right.
says cigarettes are only for VARs, villains, Arabs, and Russians.
That's right.
And like they say, like he's supposed to be like a big movie Hollywood producer, but I mean this is still in the 2010s or
Yeah.
late 2000s, and they're talking about how like people are typecasted. So like villains, Arabs, and Russians, which are all negatively typecasted, and this is like in the 2000s. They're
Yeah,
talking about that's
absolutely.
how they are cast.
Yeah.
So I think it's still a common thing in Hollywood, even though they claim to be so progressive.
The good guy in a movie hardly ever smokes.
We'll never.
We're in the age of the anti-hero now.
Yeah, that's true.
Today.
But most of the time, still
You
today.
mean today or back then?
I'm talking about today. 20 years ago, especially though, the good guy never smoked.
No.
Now we're-
wait, shows or movies?
Movies.
Come on. There's like,
I'm
It
not
has
gonna-
to be rated R now if someone smokes in it.
look at Johnny Depp. Every film besides
Not every
he's a
film.
crazy character when he
And he did a
Pirates.
lot of crazy characters.
Yeah, Pirates he never smokes in.
yeah, but that's a crazy character.
But typically speaking,
That's a Disney movie.
there's exceptions. But typically speaking, the good guy in a movie now doesn't smoke unless he's a criminal. That's a different type of good guy.
Yeah.
A bad guy, good guy.
Yeah.
We have a lot of that now.
Yeah, Goodfellas,
Things like Breaking
Goodfellas,
Bad,
yeah.
Sopranos, all that stuff. But
I went with The Punisher, which is the happiest thing. And you're like naming like really good shows. I'm like, yeah, The Punisher. You're like Breaking Bad. God, I'm
But
such an idiot.
the difference is, all right, let's not go for hard and fast rules, but the difference is when someone smokes in a movie now, it means something. It means they're a certain type of person. It means they don't give a fuck about the rules. It means
So cool.
they have a dark side. Whereas in 1980, probably in Three's Company, Jack would go out on a date and the date would smoke a cigarette, and that didn't mean anything. It didn't mean she was loose. It didn't mean she was promiscuous. It just meant she was on a date.
Well, it also meant she was a feminist.
Okay.
You know,
That's one example.
Yeah,
Right.
My point is, people could casually smoke in earlier stuff, and now when you smoke, it means something. If you write in a script that the character smokes, you're saying something.
Well, it happens in real life too. Because I went, since Savannah and I broke up and I got on the apps and stuff, I literally went out on dates with people and they go, oh, wait, you smoke? And I go, yeah. And they go, I didn't even think in 2022, 2023 to put that like in the profile.
Right.
Like no
Right.
smokers. No,
Yeah.
because nobody smokes.
Yeah.
But I'm like, no, it's, yeah, I smoke. Like,
it's weird because my wife and I, we don't smoke cigarettes, but when, you know, occasionally we'll enjoy a cigarette with a drink.
Right.
Occasionally.
Shantae.
Yeah. But whenever we see smoking on screen, we want to smoke.
Oh yeah, me too.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And it's strange, and you know what's amazing is one of my favorite actors is although he's only done 3 movies, is James Dean. You know, James Dean in Rebel, like the most rebellious figure in Hollywood at that time, besides, you know, Brando. But that movie, he drinks like milk. Mm-hmm. And he makes it looks like so cool, you know. Like
He drinks it out of the bottle, right?
Yeah, no,
The delivery bottle?
He'll have it, even I think as well, but also a glass.
Yeah.
And it's so uncool. But to have it's basically working in opposition. If such a rebellious character would be smoking, it's too stereotypical. But to have him drink a glass of milk,
Yeah.
because it's working in opposition, it's like it's cool. Suddenly.
It also shows he's still a kid.
Yeah.
Right.
You know?
Yes.
I've done it by
Yes,
accident
Yes.
because I have a leather jacket when the temperature's different and I smoke, and I don't even think about it like that.
Oh, really?
Like, yeah. But I went out to meet my friend and went out to meet a bunch of her friends, and I was outside before I went into the bar because I had gotten off of work and I was outside. I had my leather jacket on and I was smoking a cigarette. Didn't even think twice about it. And then when we were walking back to her place after all the dust settled, she goes, my friends think you're so cool.
Yeah.
And I go, why? She goes, you're just out there in your leather jacket, not giving a fuck, smoking a cigarette. And I go, that wasn't my intention at all.
You didn't smile the whole time.
No, well, I didn't even think about it. I remember when I first moved to New York, I was at a show, and very good photographer, John Cafaro, he's a still photographer, and he does a bunch of comedy shows. He was like, are you going outside to smoke that cigarette? And I was like, yeah. He goes, nobody fucking smokes anymore. Can I take pictures of it? And I was like, yeah. Because, like, no comics just go outside and smoke.
Yeah,
That used to be
yeah.
a thing before our
Oh,
set. We'd chain smoke.
for
but
sure.
Nobody does it anymore. So he's like, I want to capture this. And I was like, this is not cool.
Oh,
but
so
all right.
yeah, comics don't drink, comics don't smoke.
I know.
Comics are
All comics like in New York are sober.
yeah.
Not all, but a lot of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of them.
God, I can't wait till I fall off the rails. It's gonna be a fucking mess.
I don't like when you talk like that.
But you know, even commercials.
He's back.
This podcast is going to start to blow up.
Right.
Just
John
kicking the
Ben-
door at the stand. Am I good enough now? Grab the mic off the stage.
That's hilarious.
My name is no longer Brennan. It's John Bender. You got a whole new personality. Speaking of Three's Company, there's always bullshit like that. There's an episode where Jack pretends to be his cousin from out of town named Jake, and he wears a cowboy hat.
Oh.
And he's like,
I had an alter ego
just to
in college.
get out of an awkward
Right.
situation, he makes it 10 times more awkward.
God, I had an alter ego in college.
Oh, yeah?
Whenever I'd get too drunk, everyone would look at each other and go, Brandon Taft is here.
Oh,
Here comes
shit.
the Taft. And I'd be like hammered, like, what's up, guys? They're like, oh, God, here he is.
And you play into the role, right?
Oh, fuck yeah, I did, man.
When someone
Yeah.
gives you permission.
As soon as they go, Brandon's here, party's over, Brandon's here, I'd be like,
Yeah.
oh, we're just getting started, guys.
It's almost like permission to be an artist in a way, like
Yeah.
in a really fucked up way. Or
Yeah.
being like hypnotized, where someone suggests something to you and you go, yeah, freedom to
Here
be
we
the
go.
asshole.
Because then
Which
everything
we're
you
all
do-
dreaming of being.
Yeah, because everything you fuck up, you go, sorry. You know how Brandon gets.
Yeah,
you just
right.
blame it on that.
Yeah.
Which is one of the things
Which
I miss.
didn't work in court.
Not at all. The judge goes, "Who's Brandon?" I'm looking at Brennan Tassett. It's a long story, Judge. Your Honor.
I really don't want to demonstrate right now who Brandon is.
Do you have any brum? God, how do we got on this talking about vacation?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, just the, I don't know. I don't know.
Power of how did we get here?
Once you get me on Three's Company,
I know.
I'm
it's such
never
a good
going to
show.
stop.
Yeah, it's really. But I wish we'd have. There was a spinoff of the Wonder Years. They brought it back. Like, I think it was an African American family.
A reboot?
It's a reboot of the Wonder Years.
Right. Not a spinoff. You're
Yeah.
right, a reboot. And
They did it with Night Court too.
Yeah, they did with everything, but
Yo.
Night Court now. But they only have one.
Night Court as well.
Night Court's a reboot. They only have one. John Larroquette is the only original
No.
character. Yeah.
Is it on now?
Yeah.
It's on now. It's probably off by now.
Yeah. I
The
think it got
posters
canceled.
the posters are up in the subway, and Marshall Warfield was on Twitter like, nobody calls me, because how are you gonna have it without Bull,
Right, without
Marsha,
any of-
Harry?
Yeah, Harry.
I got to do comedy with Harry
He
Anderson.
passed away, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so funny. They're all such brilliant character actors.
Marky Post.
Right. I wish what I loved about the Wonder Years is that it was the only show that made me laugh, and dude, I would cry
Yeah.
after every show.
Uh-huh.
And there's something about they had like unlimited rights to the greatest music.
They did. That's
was a
really
big
what
thing.
sold it. The theme song alone.
Yeah, because
Was-
they couldn't release it on DVD for decades
Mm-hmm.
because it would have been too expensive. To pay the
Netflix had to
rights.
scrub the music and put new music in it.
They did?
Yeah, they had. Yeah.
No.
So when they released it on Netflix as a
Yeah.
streamer, they couldn't get the rights to almost any of the music without a huge cost. So they scrubbed the music out and put
Did
the
they
music in.
did they do cover
Wait,
songs?
so they
I'm not sure how they did it. I just remember reading
the
an
music
article
is
that
what gets you.
yeah.
Like,
Well, that's why it flopped on Netflix was because they had to change all the music. Not all of it, but a lot of the music they had to change.
Especially for the time, because now you can just dial up some old music. But it just really made everything more colorful to hear the actual music. And the funny part was, I remember watching it in the late 80s thinking the late 60s were 8 billion years ago,
yeah,
right? But they were only 20
Right.
years ago.
But it was it was the only show that dude, Kevin was me.
Yeah.
I had an older brother who would kind of bully me. Mm-hmm. My dad was a strict disciplinarian, very strict disciplinarian.
Yeah.
Like the only difference is that, my dad would hit me. My mom, blonde, very, the sweet, she would always defend us. The girl, Winnie, we all had a Winnie.
Mm-hmm.
We all had that neighbor. I couldn't believe how much of that was me.
Right.
And that's what I loved so much about it, and how beautifully sad it ends. Do you remember? Like
I don't remember, but you can spoil it for me. The show does get a little weird once they start to get older.
Yeah,
They're not as cute.
they're not as cute,
they were.
but they go through like
Real shit.
puberty stuff,
Yeah.
like
and
real-
historical shit.
Yeah.
Like women's rights and stuff like that, right?
Everything.
Yeah.
Right.
And then the older sister's a hippie who's like
Vietnam.
really,
Right.
really opposed to her dad.
David Schwimmer was in that. He's the boyfriend of his sister.
Yeah. She's almost like Jenny from Forrest Gump. It's almost like that character is modeled after her.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, and it just ends really sadly because he, his father, you don't see it, but he talks about his father passing away. So, and I think it ends with a parade on the 4th of July, and he doesn't end up with Winnie. His dad passes away, like shit, like real life shit.
Yeah,
you don't
Paul
have,
gets
yeah.
contact lenses.
Yeah,
It's a mess.
Right. He's good looking. Like what?
It's his growth spurt.
He's all in shape.
Yeah, so it's like so real, And I don't see shows like that today. That where you feel
No, shows today are like
where you laugh and you get emotional at the same time.
Ted Lasso is probably the closest thing.
Ted Lasso is a very unique show.
I've
you
never
know this
seen- no,
show?
I've never
What's great about this show
What is
it's about a soccer coach. No, it's about a football coach from America who's really good, but on like a high school or college level.
Like low-level college level.
And then he gets hired to be a football coach, soccer coach in England.
For the Premier League.
But he doesn't know what the hell he's doing. Turns out, this is the mild spoiler, they hire him because they want the team to lose.
Yeah.
But they fucking love him so much because he's like a Jesus character. The show is kind of cynical, but the character is not. And you just can't break him in a way.
Yeah.
And he always comes up with something positive that's not corny. It's actually what we're trying to do with this podcast. Like, we don't want it to be too feel-goodery.
Yeah.
But like Ted Lasso, you can't argue with Ted Lasso's philosophies, and they just work.
Yeah, and there's some episodes you'll watch, and I'm like cracking up at the beginning, and then by the end of the episode, like there's a big reveal about something in his past or something, and I'm like sobbing, and I cry a lot, so that's not a good gauge. But still, at the same time, it's like, how can, like, spoiler, but he's going through a divorce in the first season.
Yeah.
And you're like, how can this guy who motivates all these people, like everyone loves him, but like his own wife wants nothing to do with him? And it's like a real life thing because that happens.
Yeah, it's like Tony Robbins. You know, Tony Robbins was the most successful coach and motivational speaker, and his life was falling apart. Like, he got divorced, and then he you know, you listen to the first tapes, you know, because they were tapes back then.
Yeah.
And, you know, he's talking about having a healthy relationship with with your wife, with your partner, and all this stuff that he couldn't do.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful in a real way that you can, it's strange how you can motivate someone, or you can always give advice, great advice to someone, but not live, you know.
He's like, I can't do it, but you have to believe that you can.
Right.
Yeah.
That's on you, fucker.
That's all it is.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's what it is, I think. You know, you don't have to be, you're never going to be perfect, but it doesn't mean you don't have the tools to, you know, it's like there was this, when I used to study martial arts, it's not really martial arts. It was like this thing called Senshido. It was like really based on like
another layer to the onion.
Dude, yeah, that's right.
I was just about to say, here we go.
There's this school in Montreal called Senshido, and it was the most revolutionary approach to self-defense that I've ever
You just call people
explored.
Names.
Dude, it was
Just apologize.
It was insane because I was like very deep into kung fu, and and I studied judo, and I was like, I think I was like a brown belt in kung fu, whatever that means. It means nothing, but so I show up there at this school called Senshido, and the instructor says, I'm 17 years old and I'm cocky. No, I was like 16. I was younger, and then the class just ended. And I said, yeah, well, listen, I've got like kung fu experience. You know, I've been doing kung fu for a few years now. I'm not like I'm a brown belt, or I'm close to. And he says, oh, that's interesting. He's like, oh, you studied kung fu with Bun and Kin at Hungar? I was like, yeah, you know them? I was like, yeah, they were my teachers. I was like, oh, that's awesome. I was like, so what do they teach you about knife defense? I'm like, what? I was like, well, you know that knife defense is the most common attack in a street fight. So he pins me against the wall, puts a knife to my throat.
He was just waiting for this conversation.
Wait. Let me clarify.
I don't think he liked you.
Let me clarify.
Kung fu this.
Yeah, pretty much. It was a wooden knife. It wasn't a real knife. It was a wooden knife.
Right.
He pins me against the wall, puts the wooden knife to my throat. He says, "Get out of this. Anything that you say, I'll just cut you, and you're dead. So how do you get out of this?" So I try to do like a stupid crane move, and he cuts me. I do another like tiger move, cuts me. A snake cuts me. He's like, "You're dead, you're dead, you're dead." And he's doing this in front of all his students, and I'm humiliated. I am humiliated. The whole class is standing behind him, and he's just cutting me and cutting me and cutting me, and I felt like so small. And he said, "I can teach you in 30 seconds how to get out of this." And I said, all right, just show me. And we reverse roles. I put the knife to his throat, and he shows me in 30 seconds how to get out of it constantly, and it always works. And he said, I'll give you 3 months of studying with me, and if you don't like what you learn, I'll give you your money back, which I've never fucking heard in a
Right.
martial arts school.
Yeah.
And he said, I will guarantee you that you will, this is an insane guarantee. He said, I guarantee you that you will be able to defend yourself against any one-on-one
Did you
attacker.
have to wash any of his cars or paint his fence?
I wish. Oh, man, I wish. I would have.
This is just like the movie.
Yeah.
I know this is going to work.
And he became one of my best friends, kind of like a brother figure, and I would end up teaching for him, and it was one of the greatest lessons in life to just all this to say. I brought this up because one of the teachers, Kamal, he was huge. He was like extremely overweight. He could barely move, but his knowledge. He was one of the instructors. He knew he had a great way of conveying the teachings of Sanchito. So you don't have to be in great shape to teach, just like you don't have to be perfectly sane to transmit a message of motivation.
You can save your body from someone else, but not from yourself.
Exactly.
Well, and it also has a lot to do with the reason why some people who are the best motivators and they have the best insight is because they have failed so many times. Like, it's why I know it from the position of an athlete. It's why great players don't make great coaches, because they're like, just do it. Like, what do you? Like, I just did it. Just do it. And you're like, well, it's not how.
Yeah.
Like, I can't just do that.
Yeah.
So it takes someone who's tried and failed and tried and failed and tried and failed to be like, okay, well, none of this will work, so let me show you how I would do it, because I had to fail so many times.
Yeah.
That's why, like, a lot of times, I mean, it's not always, it's not a straight hard and fast rule, but a lot of times great players that were just naturally gifted can't coach. Because they'll be like, just run and catch the ball. I don't understand. What's so hard about this?
Yeah, Gretzky was a coach, a hockey coach, and he just saw the game so differently. But it's one thing to coach, it's another thing to be a player. He saw the game from above.
Yeah.
And it's so strange how sometimes you need to suffer more. It's always someone who like my acting teacher. I remember he suffered so much in life, and he still suffers. And yet he would always know what to say or how to say it, and it's almost as though his experience gives him the knowledge to share and get you out of that cloud, even though he himself is in that cloud. So I think it's fascinating that you don't need to lead a perfect life or live by the sword if you want to be able to share that knowledge. I think that in itself is a tool to be able to share that knowledge. And like the guy at Sanchito, his name is Richard Dimitri, and he kind of like it takes decades to master martial art, but to have a dude tell you in 3 months, I'll teach you how to defend yourself. That's awesome. And he covered like the 5 ranges of fighting, like of grappling, close range, knife range. He covered it all, and what was fascinating about this method or this system of fighting is like we would have scenarios. So it's like, because we always think that fighting is like in movies, it's on the perfect ground, one-on-one.
People are smoking cigarettes.
Right, exactly. And it's not like that. It could happen, you could get mugged in an elevator. It could be a crackhead. It could be a drunk uncle at a wedding grabbing, your sister's ass. And you're going to
say anything, honey, about
and depending on the situation.
This is just an example he came up with, I swear to God.
And depending on the situation, you will deal with every situation differently. And we're from Montreal, so there's snow. Did we ever learn how to fight with boots on and standing on ice? We would go outside.
Wow.
And how do you this was amazing because he would say, what's your daily routine like? I was like, I'm a businessman, I have a briefcase, and I have a tie. All right, let's go outside and fight so we'd have
on an escalator or something.
Pull a
That's
tie,
awesome.
pull your tie, pull the briefcase, and you would have to like learn how to maneuver with how you really dress. So if you have a hoodie on, if someone just pulls your hoodie down, you can't see anything. How do you fight from there? Or how do you fight if you're with your girlfriend, or if you're with your niece, or if you're with your grandparents? Are you at a parking lot? There's so many variables in fighting.
This is just translating straight to stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Because it's like when people just go, well, what are you worried about tonight's show? You're funny. But
there's too many variables.
Exterior factors.
So many factors.
Yeah.
This is why I always tie my shoes when I leave the house. No, this exact reason, because you never know what's going to happen. And
because I double knot.
Yeah, well,
I double knot too.
Yeah, like if you don't have your shoes tied and your shoe comes off in the middle of a scuffle, like now all of a sudden you're out of it. You don't know what's happening. I always got to tie the shoes.
And it was amazing because he would teach us like such basic things. Like he'd be like, the last thing you ever want to do is fight. Because you could win a fight, but then the next day the guy shows up at the same spot, the subway station where you take every morning.
He's got
he's
two
there with
friends,
5 guys. They've got chains. They've got weapons.
The cops show up.
Congratulations on your win. You're about to lose.
Exactly. You never, ever, ever, ever want to fight. And he would teach things like and nobody thinks of this, but if you just spit on someone's face.
Oh, I think of that.
Dude, just the time that you recoil and you process that someone just spat in your face.
The audacity.
Yeah, that gives you easily 7 seconds.
And they know you're crazy.
And you can run.
Yeah.
You know, that, and nobody thinks of that. And everything would go, biting, eye gouging. There's because that's the street. There's no rules. Even in UFC, when it first started, they still had no eye gouging and no biting. But the more it progressed, the more rules there were, but there's nothing. And you can push someone, and they slip because it's slippery, and you can kill someone because they fell the wrong
crack
way.
their head,
And that's so you never, ever, ever want to fight.
I briefly just was talking to Joe Rogan outside of a club, and I heard him, and he just said to a bunch of people, like 5 of us, he goes, you never want to fight outside of an event, an organized fight is the only fight you want to do. Sure.
Right.
But he was just saying the same things you were saying. And to me, he translates to the ultimate American macho guy. That's what people see in him. He's the icon for that. And he's saying, you never want to fight.
Yeah.
And it was so nice to hear that from him. So it was like, oh, good. I don't have to fight.
Yeah.
I just have to grab my keys and hope for the best. Maybe spit in someone's face.
I do it with the cigarette. That's why I always, whenever I'm walking, whenever I go into Washington Square Park, I'll light a cigarette, even though you're not allowed to smoke in the park.
Right.
But just
You're
because...
it says something about his character. He doesn't give a fuck about his
But there is one stretch of Washington Square Park, because when I go from work or the stand over to the cellar, the park's the fastest way.
Yeah.
And there's one stretch where you come out on the other side near McDougal where it's just homeless people and people doing drugs and stuff like that. But you have to walk through it. So I always light a cigarette before I do that, which is negative because then people are like, hey, let me get a cigarette. But I always do that for the same thing you're talking about. If someone comes at me, I can flick the cigarette in their face. And then they're going to be all like, what the fuck?
You got fire.
Yeah.
So it's something that I don't know if it makes me a psycho, but it's something I think about. Like if someone gets in my face, I'm right in the eyes.
Yeah.
I don't think it has to make you a psycho. I think you can very calmly analyze the situation without being tense about it.
Yeah.
And be prepared.
And, Bruce Lee would have... he would have this saying. He would say, "Your everyday stance is your fighting stance." So if you're sitting behind a desk and somebody approaches you, this is your fighting stance. If you're lying down at the beach, that becomes your fighting stance.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So fight from wherever you. What's your environment?
Here's my new technique. You step on my neck.
Yeah, great technique.
I'm gonna win.
But it's and that's a lot. Yeah, you can relate that a lot to comedy because it's your environment, who's around you, what are you standing on, how's the lighting, how's everything, and
how drunk is the audience?
Yeah, are you against a wall? That's a big thing. If you're not against a wall, you never know who's behind you. You want to get against a wall because you can.
It better be brick.
Right. Then you do comedy. You fight telling jokes.
I ain't doing no wood paneling comedy show.
Right. No, but I think it's if anyone, I want to plug this guy because he's a genius.
Still teaching?
Still teaching. The school is not called Senshido anymore, but he taught the military. He teaches kids in schools. He teaches a lot about violence. He would give like free seminars on rape prevention all the time. He would travel the world and he's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Richard Dimitri, you can easily find him on.
There's so many
Yeah.
things that aren't taught in schools that it's just a shame.
Yeah.
Like, I think they're scared if you teach self-defense that people are going to run with it and use it for offense.
Yeah.
Right.
But these are all very practical skills
Very
that
practical.
everyone needs,
Yeah.
and not a lot of people have.
I remember his first class. What really shocked me about because the fighting stance is a very passive, submissive stance. So the Senshido fighting stance would be like your hands are up and you look scared and you look very passive and defensive. And when you think about it, this stance with your hands up is the exact same stance as this.
Right.
Except this looks aggressive.
Right.
Whereas here you look like a pussy.
Yeah.
And anybody comes up to you, and the more you look like a pussy, the more the aggressor
bait
will
'em.
come closer. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And then it's so easy to just eye gouge him. But you know what I mean? Like, and it's true, and it's weird because the closer you are to a weapon, especially
Yeah.
a knife,
Yeah.
the safer you are. The further you are from a knife, you want to run.
Yeah.
And a great knife fighter would never show his knife. He would just like hold it behind his hand and keep it behind him. So I just love that fighting stance, that very passive, submissive. Hey, and then again, your body language, your tone of voice, your whole approach of and portraying and almost acting.
I was about to
fear.
say.
Yeah.
Right? And like, what do you want? Anything you want? Do you want money? Do you know? I don't have any money, but I have an ATM card. We can go to I have $10, but if you want $1,000, I'll give that to you right away.
Yeah.
And then you kind of interrupt his pattern of thinking. He's
Yeah.
like, I was gonna mug him for like $10, but now $1,000. So you're fucking with his brain. He seems like he's in complete control, but you're really in control of the whole situation.
Because you're running into McDonald's
Yes.
and making a phone call.
Boom.
While you're eating a Big Mac.
And
I
it's-
earned this
it's-
fucking Big Mac.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It's fascinating, and everyone would benefit from.
Yeah, that's
from
something
his
I've
teachings.
always meant to do and
Yeah.
never done. Self-defense or even just boxing or anything.
Boxing is the greatest for footwork. But then, once you're on the floor, what do you do then?
Yeah.
How do you deal with a grappler? How do you? And grapplers some grapplers are incredible, but they don't know about spitting and eye gouging
Yeah.
and biting. They don't know anything. Dude, you take a grappler's eyes out.
Yeah, right.
They can still have that tactile sensitivity where they can
Yeah.
maneuver and feel your body. But still, I remember Rich once got in a fight in a street fight, and he pulled the dude's ear off.
Yeah.
As he's fighting, and he said, "Dude, we can still go, but I have your ear. I think if you want, I would take it back and go to the hospital."
Right.
And the dude just took his ear and just ran.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like. That's a kind fighter.
That's a kind fighter, and that's better than any movie I've
Right.
ever seen.
My grandfather
That
was
is a movie scene, right?
My
I've never
grandfather
seen
was
it.
in the special forces, and he used to say, like, because it's the same idea where if we're in hand-to-hand combat, like someone has to die, like that's
Right.
the thing. Like you're not hand-to-hand combat, like okay guys,
You win.
yeah, you win, party's over. No, so he would say things. I would be like, oh, because when you're a kid, especially in my situation as a young boy, I'd be like, what would you do if someone did this or did that?
Yeah.
And this is the same answer because it's always the same answer, right into the groin, and then as they bend over, you take your foot, go down their shin, and break the top of their foot. And I go, you can't hit someone in the crotch. Like that's not the rules. He goes,
Yeah.
there are no what rules are you talking about?
The rule is you got to live.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
like, there are no rules.
Yeah.
And even as like in his late 70s when he had gotten much softer and was, with the grandkids, he was always so good with us. He'd still be like, no, you have to kill, like you kill them. And
Yeah,
I was
that's
like,
the answer.
okay.
The answer doesn't change based on your attitude.
Yeah. And even with, a kick to the groin, which a lot of people think, but with adrenaline, some people I remember Rich telling us a story of this guy who got kicked in the groin or someone swung a bat on his groin. He was bleeding.
Yeah.
But with the adrenaline, it didn't stop him for
You
a
also
second.
you
Yeah.
also still have a good 10 seconds after you get hit in the nuts
Yeah.
to do your business.
But there's
The
only
check is in the mail with that injury.
two spots in your body that are completely debilitating, no matter how big your opponent is. And it will always work, and that's your eyes.
Yes.
'Cause if you can't see, you can't fight, and,
Right.
and your throat. If you
Yeah.
can't breathe,
Yeah.
you can't fight, no matter how big the person is.
Yeah.
And again, the closer you are to that person, the safer you are.
Yeah.
So he would teach like these 50, 60-year-old women how to defend themselves, and a lot of self-defense is psychology. Like it's mainly psychology. Like again, I recommend to read a great book on it's called by Gavin De Becker called The Gift of Fear, and it's about rape prevention and how to trust your intuition. And he would tell Rich once told us a story about this one of his students who was about to get raped. She was about to get raped. She was on a date. She was in the car, and she said, okay, listen, and she knows what's going down. She knows she's about to get raped. So she says, you know what? Why don't we go to my place? And I got a lot of cocaine there, and you could do whatever the fuck you want to me.
Right.
And so he gets excited.
Yeah.
So she brings him back to her place, not knowing that she had the key to her brother's apartment. She opens it up, and she knew that he was watching the football game with 10 of his friends.
Yeah.
So she opens the door and she starts yelling, my date is trying to rape me. And gets jumped by the 10 guys. And that is like a perfect example of true self-defense.
Yeah.
Where you didn't have to use your body and get physical, but you evaded this horrible situation using psychology.
Yeah.
Using your mind.
Yeah. And he would teach that. It was just he taught the emotional aspect of fighting, of self-defense, the physical. The physical is very minimal because for it to escalate to the physical is insane. You have to have like this incredible ego or be really out of luck because you never know.
Yeah.
But for it to escalate, there's so much you can do to de-escalate, and it all has to do with your ego. Like, are you willing to, again, it's never worth it. You never know what's going to happen the next day. But he would teach the psychological, the emotional, and the physical. And, you know, there's like a lot of like Krav Maga is really popular, but Krav Maga is also military. Like, can you teach a 60-year-old woman how to defend herself properly against a guy who's, 6'4" and lunging at her with a knife?
Yeah.
If you don't cover the psychological aspect of that, or how to, how to approach that or how to fight that, then you will lose. Physically, you will lose. So it was so well rounded.
Yeah.
It was so. And I think anyone who gets a chance to work with him or...
I want to take the 50-year-old woman class.
Yeah, well, that was my class too.
Yeah.
Well, there is something to say about the psychological thing, because this happens to me on the subway where I'll get on and someone is aggressive or says something or does something, and I think like, oh, they're like to kind of de-escalate the situation, I will acknowledge that they're there, like that I hear them.
Yeah.
But a lot of times for me, that'll be like if he's like, hey, get in the fucking train, you're holding up the fucking train. I'll be like, yeah, man. Like, yeah, totally. Like trying to like, yeah. And he'll be like, who the fuck are you talking to? And I'm like, oh, I played this totally wrong.
Right.
But it's like you said, like if I had a huge ego, it's like, fuck you, I'm talking to you.
Right.
Then it's going to, but I'm always just like, oh, my bad, man. I was just agreeing with you. Like, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
But it's like you said, like at the drop of a dime, especially in this city in New York, people are like ready to fight.
They've already been through 3 things by 2 o'clock.
Yeah, so you have to really play on the psychological aspect of like, all right, well, I said the wrong thing. Now I have to, because sometimes if you ignore people, I've had people accost me for like just ignoring them. They're like, I know you can fucking hear me.
Yeah.
You take your fucking headphones out. I know you can fucking hear. And I'm like, sorry, man. Like, I didn't hear you. I had my headphones in.
Yeah.
Because, you could definitely go the other way and be like, what the fuck did you say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I never, ever do that.
I'm sorry, I was busy yelling at myself in my head. I didn't hear you yelling at me.
Your ego will get you in trouble, man.
Oh,
It's
that's
always
the
your
biggest
ego.
problem.
It's your ego.
Yeah.
Always gets you in trouble.
Right.
So it's very meditative to stay alive in those situations. And it's tricky because you have that rush of adrenaline.
Oh, man.
And that is so powerful.
And there is also the ego and everything we're brought up with about being a macho, being a man.
Yeah.
And like if you watch a movie, you always want to see the main character say the fucking most smart ass shit.
Right.
Or like pop somebody in the neck and duck
How do you
out.
like them apples?
Yeah,
you know, like,
you wanna, yeah, it's about like winning
Right.
and all those. And then with social media, it's always about winning, always getting the last word
Yeah.
in. And that's kind of where we're at with as far as like peers judging you. And then you start to judge yourself in that way.
I think, yeah, you're totally right. And
Yeah.
you fail or you lose as soon as you engage.
Yep.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the social pressure. How he said that about you, how you're not going to respond. It's
Yes.
like, then I'm just playing into that game.
Exactly.
And then you're not feeding the wolf that's trying to bite, you know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's a really great lessons, man.
All right. Well, I think we learned something today.
We did.
We still don't know who the best apartment manager is for Three's Company. But we do have a handle on self-defense, and that's more important. Let's face it.
Oh, I think self-defense it's just beyond physical. It's what we go through every day,
Yep.
It's
showing
a
up.
dance. Yeah, but before the dance starts,
Right.
it's a courting.
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Here comes the outro.
Sirens.
Thanks for listening to The Power of How. Music by Daniel Torado, artwork by Nelson Diaz. Follow us on all the social medias at The Power of How Podcast. Rate, review, and subscribe, and check us out at patreon.com/The Power of How Podcast. Send us some positive vibes in the form of U.S. currency. See you next week, everybody.